You're here, one, to promote Hereafter, and two, to be on a jury. Maybe let's start with Hereafter. It opens with a flood sequence, and I was wondering, it always is a large task. How much of it was CGI, and how much was it normal?
Well, it was quite an extent. I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't seen the film, but because it's quite an extensive kind of cataclysmic effect. It, a lot of it is CGI, and what we tried to concentrate on was getting the emotion in real, not in CGI. So it's almost all the characters' emotion, reaction, and stuff we filmed in different situations. And then sort of the framing of the whole thing is CGI.
The film deals with paranormal things, how to call it. What was the main visual concept for this?
So in English, when you see the title, that's the context. So was your question about how we visualize the hereafter, or?
Yeah, and what was the concept before shooting?
Well, the idea with Clint actually is a little unusual in that he'd rather give the viewer more questions than answers. So our discussions all had to do with ambiguity and sort of open-endedness and raising questions rather than answers, as it were. So it's sort of in that context.
You're responsible for Clint Eastwood's visual style since a decade or so, I guess. How is your work with him?
Well, I worked as the gaffer, the chief lighting person for like 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, as a director of photography.
Yeah, and for the last 10 years I've been, well, no, the last 8 years I've been the director of photography. It's great to work with. So as a result, we've known each other for 30 years. So we don't have to talk much about anything. And he likes the environment to be very spontaneous for the artists. And as a result, our conversations are extremely they're almost in code and very short, because we just understand each other. It's mostly with looks and things like that. Most people, when the visitors never understand how we communicate, and it's just because it's not obvious, I guess.
But you've worked on with Clint Eastwood on many difficult topics and many different topics. So what is your, as a cinematographer, take on shooting a film, on preparing to a film like Mystic River, Gran Torino, and Blood Work, rather?
Well, I set out to sort of imagine a film in my head, and the way I work with Clint is I will typically find, the ideal situation is when I can find one book of reference images. Say maybe it's a book with 300 pictures, and I'll take these Post-it notes, the little yellow things with the glue on them, and I'll put in like 10 or 15 of the images I feel are most relevant to the story we're about to tell. And then there'll be some moment where he and I are someplace together, and I'll like give him the book, and then he'll look, and he'll usually move one or two Post-its around. We're pretty much on the same page, but he might take a Post-it off of one image and put it on an image I didn't choose, and just that act gives me a very precise idea of what it had nothing to do with the movie directly. But just the change between the image I was thinking about and the one he's thinking about gives me a very good guidance to what he's thinking, and then we just go through the film and shoot.
Okay, like I said, you're here as a juror. How do you feel? What is your how do you feel your responsibility as a juror?
Well, it's a pretty great festival for cinematography, and and fortunately there are a number of jurors on the jury, so we all discuss very seriously what we've seen, and then you just tell the truth, or whatever your feeling is, and we'll see. We're not far enough along right now to know what's going to happen. But I was on the Polish jury, I think 3 years ago, Polish film jury, which was a real pleasure. And it's like being on a jury. It's sort of, it's in a sense, it's a good excuse to see. It's like 16 films, like boom. And also it's sort of giving something back, I guess, to the business, to the industry. But I would hate to do it full time. It's once is enough for a while.